So I'm assuming you have downloaded the application of Xcode. Right now I'm going to just go through Xcode and show you around. So I'm assuming that this is your first time you're opening the Xcode. So if you are familiar with Xcode, it's okay. I'm just going to show you some features of Xcode, where each functions, which each UI elements are located. So in the future, when you are watching the videos, what I'm doing, so you can understand what's going on the screen. So when you open the Xcode, we are going to get started with a new project and just click on single view application. I'm going to call this, I don't know, intro. We are not going to do anything, just I'm going to save this on my desktop. So once you give the project a name, then you have like your theme. If you have an Apple developer account, you will be able to select someone this developer account. Otherwise, you can put none there. The organization name, again, if you have Apple developer account, it will be filled out for you. Then it goes organization identifier. Usually this is a reverse website, so it's called com.iosdevschool, which is my domain. And the bundle identifier is generated automatically based on your organization identifier and your product name here. The language, we are going to use Swift always. There is also Objective-C, which was the old programming language of that was used to develop applications for iPhones and iPads. I'm sure people are still using the Objective-C, but since the Swift is the new one, we are moving on with Swift. And here you have 3 ticks: use core data, which is storage on the iPhone. It's like a small server on iPhone to keep your data there. And we have include UI test, include this you can click, or you don't have to, you can leave it as it is. We're not going to use any of this right now. So then click next, and it will ask where you are going to save your application. So what I have done, I have created an iOS Bootcamp folder on my desktop, and I'm going to save everything to my folder here. So you can either save it to your desktop or just create another folder where you are going to save all your projects, so it's easier for you to access it. I'm going to click on create, and this is the main view we get when we create an Xcode project. So while our application is selected here on top, we will see this middle section. Basically, Xcode has 4 parts: the left panel here, the middle panel, the right panel, and also we have this bottom panel here, which can be accessed. The bottom panel is divided into 2 sections. This is called the debugging area. You can open and close different sides of it using these buttons here. You can hide this just by click and dragging down, or Command-Shift-Y, it shows and hides. The left panel here, this is our folder area. So as you can see, we have different buttons on top. The first one is our folder location, so I'm going to close these UI tests, which we're not going to use. By default, we have this our application and some of the folders. So it's the app delegate file, .swift file, which all the applications have. Then by default, we get a boilerplate code from Apple with one view controller file. And then we have our main storyboard. The storyboard is where we are designing our application. So right now it's just an empty white view. So if I want to zoom in or zoom out on my storyboard here, you can either use the plus and minus buttons at the bottom, or if you are using a laptop, you can pinch in and out to zoom in and zoom out. So right now we have one view here and one view controller, file that controls that view. Then we have our assets here. Assets are like if you want to use any images, sounds, videos in your application, you will put them here. Also, assets include app icons. So if you run if you see an icon on your iPhones or iPad screen, this is where you put it. So, and every application has different icons and of different size. So for iPhone it's a different size, for iPad it's a different size. For the search, when you are searching something on your iPhone and iPad, there is a small icon showing your application name, it's different size. So Apple is helping us, telling what size each icon should be. So it says 2x and 3x, and the size is 20 points. So imagine a 20-point square times 2x, which is 40 by 40, then times 3x, which is 60 by 60, and this applies to below as well. So it's 29 points times 2 and times 3. We're not going to focus on this. Later on, when we are going to create an applications, we will create also icons, so you will get familiar with it later on. Then if we move down, we have a launch screen storyboard. Make sure you don't mix this with the main storyboard. What launch screen stands for is the first splash view that you see on your application when you open. Before application loads up, this is the screen you are going to see. So if you here you can put like your logo or something, or your application name. So your user sees something before the application loads up, not a white screen. On our storyboard, we have also this side panel here, which we can open and close. And this side panel contains some elements of our UI that we have selected, current view controller. About this we are going to talk later on when we start using our user interface. Now we just move on to info plist file. Here there are some default keys and values. The keys are on the left and values are on the right. And here the type, it says what is the type of the value. So these are default application keys and values, like what is bundle identifier, application name, etc., application version. And also we can click on the plus or minus button to remove something or to add something. And when we request some kind of permission from iOS to give us permission to use, for example, camera, microphone, contacts, photo libraries, etc., we are going to add them to our plist. Again, don't pay too much attention to this now, I'm just showing you. Once we start using this, you will understand what's going on here. And this test info and the test users, we're not going to use them, so I'm not going to get into details. If you select the application, this blue icon here, you will see the middle area. This is about our application. The identity is where our display name goes. So no matter what the project name is, if I put display name, for example, game, and if I run this on my simulator or on my iPhone, the application name will be game. Otherwise, if I delete, it will get the default app name here. Then it has the bundle identifier, the version, the build. What a version is, let's say at the beginning our application is 1.0 version. Then we release it to App Store, and if you have some updates, you call it like version 1.1. And then you upload the new version, so your user can see that there is an update, a new version, or you can call it like 1.0, 0.1, or any number here. You can put as many zeros or as many ones you want, or you can just call it 2.0. So it's totally up to you. Then under signing, here you have your app developer user theme. Either is none, or if you have created a developer account, you can put your developer account here. Then deployment information area. This shows the deployment target, which is the minimum deployment target. So currently it stands iOS 12. We can choose a different iOS here. It starts from iOS 8. Yours may be different if you are using a different Xcode version. They may drop some of the iOS versions, so they no longer support it. So right now, if we are running on simulator, we can keep it on iOS 12. But if you want to run on your device and your device doesn't have iOS 12 on it, you may want it to lower like iOS 11.2 or something. But I'm going to keep mine on iOS 12 because This is the version of simulator. Then the device information, we have iPhone and iPad, or a universal. So I'm going to stick with the universal because the applications we are going to build, they will run on iPhone and iPad at the same time, even though iPads will require different user interface design. We are not going to get into this. We are just to demonstrate you the Xcode here. Then we have main interface. What this stands for is where our UI will be get from. So right now we have a main.storyboard file. So our application is set to by default get the main storyboard as our user interface. If you have different, you can have either even two storyboards here. So make sure this you don't change now because we are not going to play with this. Then we have device orientation. This is the supporting orientation of your application. So it can be either portrait, landscape left, landscape right. You see upside down is not ticked by default. So if you turn your upside down your phone, it's not going to rotate your application. So depending on your application, we're going to tick different options here. But if I untick the portrait, it will be available only on landscape or left or landscape right. For now, we're not changing anything here. Then we have status bar. It's light or default. We're going to keep this, hide status bar or require full screen. We're not going to touch any of these. Then the information about app icons. Again, this is like where the application should get the icons, which is under our assets, the icon folder. Again, we're not touching any of this. I will not get into details about the rest of the tabs here. We will get into this when we start using them. I don't want to get you confused right now. What I want you to do is just go ahead and click on these different tabs here and see what each one shows. So you're familiar with the interface of Xcode. For example, to search here, we can search something in our application. Then we have here the error area. When we have some errors in our application, we can check them out here. This is, for example, the breakpoint area. Currently, we have no breakpoints. Again, you will be familiar with this once we start using. So this is mainly we are going to be on this view or on the error area when we are running our application. So right now I'm going to keep this here. Then we have our right area here. Again, the right panel can be accessed from here and the left panel can be accessed to show and hide from here, and the bottom panel can be done from here. Also, there are shortcuts like Command 0 hides the left panel, Command Option 0 hides the right panel, and Command Shift Y hides the bottom panel. So if you like to use shortcuts, it's okay. Otherwise, all the keys are here. The buttons, you can just tap them.